Meet Dan Cox, Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate for Maryland governor. Cox worked with Trump, trying to prove the last election was a fraud.
Handpicked by Trump to run for Congress, Gibbs called Trump the greatest president and worked in Trump's administration with Ben Carson.
It's why Bailey proudly embraces the Trump agenda, calling into question our elections.
He's one of Donald Trump's strongest supporters. He wants to end vote by mail, and he led the fight to audit the 2020 election. If Mastriano wins, it's a win for what Donald Trump stands for.
Dan Cox, too close to Trump, too conservative for Maryland.
Wow, that mix-up of ads there, on first thought or first sight, it would look like those are made to make sure that those candidates that they're going after are looking to lose, or at least you would like for them to lose. In reality, those ads were crafted and very meticulously formed to make sure that people who watch them would vote for those folks. There's another twist because the people who made those ads are many Democratic organizations, DCCC. What they want to do is get more extreme Republicans through the primary process to go against Democrats in the general election on the midterms as well. I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit of this, but the details to it are crazy. One of those victims of those moderate, I guess you would call Republicans, is Peter Meyer up there in Michigan. He did lose his race on Tuesday to one of those candidates, and he's not very happy about the fact that Democrats in organized organizations did this to him. Now, before he lost, he wrote a bit of an op-ed or an essay to talk about what was going on because he already wasn't happy, he'd heard about it. So let's get a couple pieces of what he then said before he got beaten. In one of many such naked political gambits aimed at elevating the weaker Republican candidate ahead of the November midterm elections, the DCCC launched a $435,000 ad buy to promote the election, denying Gibbs in the final days leading up to our primaries, what Meyer wrote. He added that the amount was more than Gibbs raised during his campaign and was nearly 100 times the $5,000 contribution Gibbs received from Trump's Save America super PAC. Now, Meyer is one of 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump on a charge of inciting the Capitol riot. Went on to note that Gibbs, who's a former official in the Department of Housing and Urban Development under Trump, denies the results of the 2020 election, has accused Obama administration officials of taking part in some bizarre satanic ritual, defended anti-Semites on his now locked Twitter account, and has tweeted that Democrats are the party of Islam, gender bending, anti-police, and you racist. So that's what Meyer wrote before he lost, because I think he was a little worried as that promotion of Gibbs then also happened. But there's more to this ad plan as they went through. Like I said, there's more pieces of this. It was very detailed. That first part was the plan. There's themes involved. It's like on that one, they wanted to connect these candidates to Trump, which for people who dislike Trump, they would say, yeah, connect them to Trump so we can make sure they lose. But they're targeting Republicans, specifically MAGA Republicans. That was ploy number one. The second attack is to make the more moderate looking Republican, which I guess you can call them that, connect them to Democrats or show how moderate they are. Let's watch that theme.
Someone running against JB Pritzker, Richard Irvin sure seems to like him.
It is my honor to bring to the podium a great friend, a great leader who has guided our state with professionalism and compassion throughout this entire pandemic. Fortunately, we have a partner at the state level who not only sees the vision, he believes in the vision. Thank you, Governor Pritzker, for being here today and for making Black and brown communities a priority.
Richard Irvin,
a great friend, a great leader.
Why is he even running?
Politician Joe O'Dea is not who he says he is. O'Dea says he wants to rein in government spending, but he supports Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill. And before running for Senate as a Republican, O'Dea actually supported Democrats and even gave money to Michael Bennet. O'Dea also donated to John Hickenlooper, even after he signed new gun safety measures into law. No way, O'Dea. Colorado deserves a straight shooter.
So Richard Irvin, Joe O'Dea were connected to Democrats as looking way too cozy with these losers, these tree huggers, whatever it is that many conservatives may want to call them. So you promote the crazies by connecting them to Trump, and then you also bash out the moderates by talking about the things they've said kindly about Democrats colleagues. There's one more aspect of this. The third aspect was showing how they're too conservative, which again would sound like something many people wouldn't want because that's a bit of an extreme. Not MAGA folks. Let's watch this theme.
John Gibbs is too conservative for West Michigan.
Are pro-Trump Republican Darren Bailey's policies too conservative for Illinois? It was Darren Bailey who sued to stop J.B. Pritzker's COVID mandates.
Gibbs has promised to push that same conservative agenda in Congress.
Tell Darren Bailey his policies are just too conservative for Illinois.
The Gibbs-Trump agenda is too conservative for West Michigan.
If you haven't picked up on it yet, that worked. That last aspect, John Gibbs is the one who then beat Peter Meyer up in Michigan. Yes, as this all has happened, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that was promoted and pushed to these candidates and actually worked in this particular case. And actually articles have talked about how other versions of this tactic have also worked to a degree. Is this a good idea when it comes to these midterms? I think it's one of those 50-50 type of things.
I mean, so first of all, these ads are so cheesy, political ads in general, regardless of what side of the aisle they come from. And it always is kind of funny to me that they are effective. And funny is, to put it nicely. But, these people who make decisions to vote based on these ads, like, I don't know, I have to feel that they're not the most informed of voters, right? But to your question, this is why I would not make a good political strategist, because I don't know if this is a good idea or not. It's definitely high risk, high reward, but I tend to be a little bit more cautious when I'm gambling with things like people's lives and the fate of democracy. But in this particular situation, I think the question to be asked here is whether or not Republican voters care specifically about Trump's endorsement and whether or not they really subscribe to things like QAnon or the Stop the Steal rhetoric and all those accompanying beliefs, at least to the point that any of it is actually a deciding factor for voters as we're going through all these different primaries in all these different states. And there's a lot of factors to consider as to why one candidate does better than another. Ad spend is definitely one of them.
Graphics, but
And the Trump endorsement is just another one of those factors. But does Trump still have sway over the GOP as a party? Sure. But do the average Republican voters actually hold him and everything that comes with Trump in as high regard? It's unclear.
Well, yeah, but we've seen some polls talk about, we see many politicians have detached from Trump to a degree, or they're looking at we got to separate and move on. Those are the ones that get attacked primarily by him, but also many voters from what I guess you can call regular Republican voters versus the MAGA wing, they're still out there voting, and many of them are I guess they're motivated by any kind of anger or aggression towards the opposing party in agenda and policies. Be damned, who cares? So I think it does work to an extent, and wherever those numbers lie, I think they're trying to strike while the iron is still somewhat hot before they've completely detached from Trump. If again, things don't go their way in midterms, and of course in 24 when it comes to presidential elections, and actually more importantly, if anything goes down with Donald Trump after these January 6 hearings come down and people are expecting some charges and indictments to happen. We'll see, there's lots of things to happen, but they're still going with this tactic, which again, I'm not so sure. Graphic for you guys really fast before we move on to this next story. Representative Dean Phillips, he's a Democrat of Minnesota. He told Politico, he has issues with this. It's dishonorable and it's dangerous and it's just damn wrong. Adam Kinzinger, a Republican who's been working on the January 6th committee, he voted alongside Meyer, who lost up there in Michigan, to impeach Trump. And he also argued that it makes Democrats' complaints about the lack of, quote, good Republicans ring hollow. Maybe that's another reason why people like Nancy Pelosi shouldn't say we're looking for these good Republicans of the party, because wherever they are, they're working with you, so you don't need to say you're looking for them. Talk about the ones that are holding up things for the American people. There's many tactics here. We'll see which ones work. John and I talked about this maybe a couple months ago in a different aspect of trying to find a way to manipulate Republican primaries. I'm not always big on it. But again, as you mentioned, yes, I'm not a political strategist either. That's just my thoughts.